Ever since I completed Final Fantasy XV, I had a lot of speculation about how the story would be further developed. And to be honest, I was upset with how the current story had presented itself. There were a lot of questions, and it didn't feel like the good kind of missing information. It didn't feel good wanting to know what happened to Gladio because it felt like part of the necessary information to the main story was missing. Episode Gladiolus was meant to satisfy that missing information. Hi, I'm Phoenix, and let's talk about Episode Gladiolus. In this DLC, you play as Gladiolus, the acting shield for King-to-be Prince Noctis. The story of Episode Gladiolus takes place during Chapter 7 of the main game, once Gladio has separated from the rest of the group. In response to the smackdown Ravish just gave them, Gladio sets off to become a better fighter so he can properly protect Noctis as the shield to the true king. This is boring. I have no idea how else to put it. They took a one-dimensional character, they gave him an opportunity to be fleshed out more, so what do? They give him his own DLC. Cool, no problem, but what's the DLC about? It's all about him becoming stronger for somebody else. This isn't empowering. This doesn't make me want to cheer for Gladio. This makes me care less about him. This only increases his value to Noctis. While I understand the sentiment is to show how strong he can be on his own, we've already known this. In all different forms of the Final Fantasy XV story, Gladio has always been shown to be a sparring partner, if not some sort of mentor figure for Noctis as he travels. Putting Gilgamesh in the lore of Final Fantasy XV was a great idea. In a game all about using tons of different weapons, Gilgamesh is the perfect fit. I found Gilgamesh to be the more interesting character in this DLC. They explain him in an interesting way and try to relate him to Gladio and how the two are alike. This gives Gladio something to strive to be. Unfortunately, due to the size of the DLC, we aren't given adequate setup time to feel this possible connection. A good example of what this could have been like would be similar to the dual Keyblade Roxas segment at the beginning of Kingdom Hearts 2. Even though Sora never really sees Roxas doing this, it serves as a good example for us, the player, to see the power difference between who we are and who we could be. It makes us feel like we're really working towards something. Gilgamesh's power is never really demonstrated in a way that we can understand it. We fight against him and lose. There's nothing fancy, there's no display of how powerful he is, you just can't really harm him. And the closest thing that we get to seeing how he can be knocked down a peg is the fact that our good friend Kor, who's been traveling with us in the cave, has survived against Gilgamesh once before. It doesn't mean he beat him. This doesn't generate any hope for us. It literally just gives us the idea that we might not die. And as the story progresses, you learn a bit more about Kor, Gladio, Gladio's father, the previous shield to the king, and I will give the story this. The elements of Gladio's father in this story help show that Gladio can become more than his predecessor. He has something that he can strive to pass. I'm sure that a chunk of the audience will understand parental ties and living up to your potential as imagined by your parents. I don't doubt this part hitting home for players, but unfortunately it doesn't excuse the poor setup and execution for Gilgamesh. More on this later. Episode Gladiolus uses a similar combat system to the core Final Fantasy XV game, but instead of focusing on mobility, Gladio is meant to have the player focus more on a bait and punish gameplay style. You wait out attacks, time and block correctly to get the parry, and that'll fill up your rage meter, which allows you to dish out more damage. That's it. No, I'm not joking. Sure, you do get the glaive arts where you can hit more stuff to then hit triangle to do a big sweeping move that does damage, but you're barely in control of it. I honestly don't have to hark on the gameplay that much in this review because pretty much every problem that I had with original Final Fantasy XV is still there, considering it's the same game, just a different character. The camera is still horrible, it barely has any idea what it's doing, and all of the great mobility that Noctis had is gone with Gladio, and you're greeted with the ability to pick up rocks and swing them instead. The way Noctis is able to move around the map and easily engage the enemy is one of the most appealing things about Final Fantasy XV. If you take that away, you need another compelling way to enter the field, and Gladio just doesn't have the moveset to make up for it. The only lunging move he has comes out very awkwardly and doesn't always hit the way you think it's going to. Whiffing isn't unheard of for Gladio, and you'll notice this within the first couple of mob fights. The idea of getting souls from completing the different trials of Gilgamesh was a neat concept in theory, but in no way did they execute it creatively and uniquely. You learn to throw rocks, then you get a new triangle button super move that you can only use if you engage in the janky combat, and then you get the ability to harm Gilgamesh. Having your final ability be unlocking the final boss fight is like being told that if you open a bag of chips, you're gonna find chips inside. There are so many better ways to handle the souls and the powers you get from the trials. The final boss fight against Gilgamesh was pretty interesting. We had been fighting a bunch of monsters before with arbitrary attack animations, big mob fights, and flinging giant rock pillars around. But changing it up to a more humanoid boss that actually holds stances and telegraphs moves made for a very interesting fight. The environment was neat, all the swords and the ground set up for this really spoopy feeling, and his animations reflected that. The way Gilgamesh would hold stances and slowly move around would build up this tension. It made you think about what he was going to do and when you should try and block and parry. The Two-Face fight was okay. I mean, it's just simply okay. There was nothing great or exceptional about the fight, it just kind of was. The change up between the first phase and the second phase was pretty negligible. Changing from one phase to the next in a boss fight should feel gratifying, like you're actually facing a whole new side of the enemy. The Arden fight did a good job of this, and I'm not sure what happened in the design phase here. Something should have kicked up a notch. Or maybe this is just an effect of the currently bland combat system. Episode Gladiolus has problems. It's slow, the story's one-dimensional, the combat's one-dimensional, it lacks a lot of depth. I like the direction they're going in by giving us more to the supporting roles of the main game, and even showing more lore behind the world itself, not just one person. But as of right now, without playing any of the other DLCs, Square and Tabata's team have a lot of work they're going to do if they're going to make more DLC that's worth paying for. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, hit the like button. If you didn't like it, chuck some rock pillars at the dislike button. If you liked the review, I've got plenty of others on my channel, be sure to check them out. And if you want to see my journey through discovering this game and how I came to these conclusions in the review, you can check out the playthrough as well. If you want to see more of my stuff as it comes out, just be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the bell for notifications whenever a new video comes out. And as always, guys, see you guys next time.